There are things happening around the Chargers right now that may not scream like massive headlines, but they are definitely making noise inside the building. The offensive line is being rebuilt through detail, competition, and real pressure. A major edge market rumor is starting to circle around Los Angeles. Herbert might finally be getting the protection and offensive design he has been missing. And defensively, Perryman has to stabilize a room that still has a lot of questions. Drop a like and subscribe because today we are reading the building with no soft filter. Pay attention to how dangerous this first story is because it does not arrive with fireworks. It arrives through repeated practice reps, first-team alignment, and the kind of clue coaches love to act like means nothing in June, while sharp fans notice it right away. Kayode Awosika, who came in as a depth signing, is starting to move forward in the left guard battle. If that sticks, Joe Ortiz may have found value in a place most people were not even watching. The mission this offseason was serious. Protect Justin Herbert for real. Not window dressing. Not one name thrown in just to calm down social media. The Chargers attacked center with Tyler Biadasz, brought in Cole Strange for the right side, drafted Jake Slaughter in the second round, kept Trevor Penning in the building, and added Awosika on a cheap deal. That is volume. That is competition. That is the front office telling everybody that nobody wins a job just because the resume looks clean. The behind-the-scenes part gets even more interesting when you look at the actual dynamic. Slaughter carries real draft investment, athleticism, and future upside. Penning brings size, experience, and a chance to reset his career path. But the guy working with the first unit right now is Awosika, and in a Mike McDaniel offense that makes sense. This system does not always need a guard who destroys people one-on-one every snap. It needs movement, angles, timing, space blocking, and linemen who can get to the right spot before the defense closes the door. Nobody is trying to sell a fantasy here. In Detroit last season, Awosika started 4 games, and according to Pro Football Focus, allowed 10 pressures and 3 sacks on 168 pass-blocking snaps. So yes, there is risk. There is a reason this competition is still open. But the bigger point is this. If he becomes a viable starter, even just a solid one, the entire equation starts to change. With Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt coming back for training camp, the Chargers do not need to magically find a superstar at left guard. They need to avoid a hole. They need stability. They need to give Herbert room to breathe, give the run game a real chance to work, and give Slaughter time before throwing him right into the fire. If Awosika gives them that for $2 million, my friend, that is not just a smart signing. That is a daylight steal. The conversation changes temperature right here, because going from an internal left guard battle to a possible impact name in the pass rush market is exactly the kind of jump that shows where the Chargers are trying to go. Building a decent roster is not enough. In the AFC, decent gets you sent home early. Decent gets punished by mobile quarterbacks, explosive offenses, and games that are decided on third down. To survive in that world, Los Angeles has to be uncomfortable to deal with. Heavy, the kind of team that makes every dropback feel dangerous. That is where Kayvon Thibodeaux enters the picture as one of those ideas that starts small, almost whispered around the league, and then suddenly makes too much sense to ignore. The Giants' edge rusher is entering a crucial year, playing 2026 on his 5th-year option with a salary around $14.751 million, and he could hit the market after the season. New York has Brian Burns, Abdul Carter coming in with force, and an expensive, talented pass rush room full of future decisions. Somebody has to get the snaps, the money, and the priority. Not everyone can be treated like the centerpiece at the same time. If the Giants start slow, if Carter earns a larger role quickly, if Burns remains the face of that pressure package, the question behind closed doors becomes impossible to dodge. Are they paying Thibodeaux for years, or are they turning that value into a return before the situation gets tight? For the Chargers, that is the part that flips the light on. Thibodeaux would not be a decorative move. He would be an aggressive bet on physical ceiling, youth, burst, and defensive rotation. He had 11.5 sacks in 2023. Then the production dropped, including a 2025 season limited by injury, where he finished with 2.5 sacks in 10 games. Some teams may see concern there. An ambitious front office may see a discount. That is how smart teams win the market. They do not wait for the player to explode again and let everybody else line up. They do not sit still until the price becomes ridiculous. The move is seeing it early, measuring the cost, understanding the contract, and deciding whether the talent is still worth the swing. Because if Thibodeaux finds his rhythm again in Los Angeles, with a defense that already has important pieces on the edge, opposing offenses lose comfort in a hurry. There is a cold calculation behind it. Draft capital, future extension, cap fit, health, and role in the rotation. But football also rewards courage at the right time. What bothers me is the thought of another AFC contender sniffing out this opportunity before the Chargers do. If that door opens, Joe Ortiz cannot just stare at it from far away. He has to call, push, test the price, and make it clear that Los Angeles is not here to watch the market happen. This is where the story stops being only about names on a depth chart and becomes a serious demand. When Albert Breer looks at the Chargers' offense and points out that the team finished 20th in scoring at 21.6 points per game, even without its tackles for much of the year, he is saying something a lot of people outside Los Angeles love to ignore. This offense was not dead. It was squeezed. It was playing with the brakes on, with Justin Herbert taking too many hits and the structure falling apart in moments that should have belonged to the Chargers. They allowed 60 sacks, 21 turnovers in 17 games. Herbert alone was dropped 54 times and committed 15 turnovers during the regular season. Then came that playoff loss in New England, 16-3, with a lost fumble and 6 sacks. That is not a small note. That is a siren. You do not put a quarterback of that level in survival mode and then act like all that was missing was prettier execution on a whiteboard. That is why Mike McDaniel changes the size of the conversation. It is more than simply calling different plays. It is creating answers before the pressure arrives. It is moving defenses with motion, speeding up reads, opening space for the run game, and stopping every third down from turning into Justin Herbert against the world. Breer pointed to that exact package of hope. Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater back, Ladd McConkey and Trey Harris developing, David Njoku and Charlie Kolar arriving at tight end, Omarion Hampton as the lead back, and one of the best play designers in the game controlling the board. The detail I really like here is Hampton. If McDaniel brings anything close to what he showed late in Miami, when the run game started rolling down the stretch, the Chargers can finally drag this offense out of desperation mode. Hampton missed 8 games in 2025, but if he is healthy and getting volume early, he does not help only by running the football. He protects Herbert indirectly. He forces linebackers to respect play action. He cuts down on obvious passing snaps. He changes the mood of the defense. Nobody has to expect 5,014 yards and 38 touchdowns like 2021 to call this progress. The target is different. Fewer hits, fewer giveaways, cleaner possessions, more methodical touchdowns. In 2024, the offense scored 40 offensive touchdowns. In 2025, that dropped to 36. If the protection settles and McDaniel finds rhythm, that number has to climb. Simple as that. I want to feel the fan base temperature on this one. Do you believe the biggest offensive jump comes from McDaniel's scheme, from Slater and Alt returning, or from Omarion Hampton's impact? Because to me, if all three hit at the same time, the AFC has to stop treating the Chargers like a promise and start treating them like a problem. After talking offense, protection, and a possible market hunt, the defense brings a totally different question. Who controls the middle of the field when the season starts punching for real? Chris O'Leary's arrival does not feel like a full reset. He comes from Jesse Minter's school, knows the structure, understands the language, and the Chargers did several things right to keep the defensive identity from slipping. They brought Denzel Perryman back. They kept Tony Jefferson. They added Dalvin Tomlinson to toughen up the run defense. They drafted Akeem Mesidor, Nick Barrett, and Genesis Smith to add depth and competition. On paper, that looks like continuity with reinforcements. But paper does not tackle running backs. Paper does not organize pre-snap adjustments. Paper does not fix bad angles when an offense speeds up. That is why Perryman, at 33 years old, becomes more important than a lot of people are willing to admit in June. Deion Henley is the young name that excites me most in that group. He has energy, range, and growth. But next to him, the room still carries major questions. Junior Colson missed all of 2025 with a shoulder injury. Troy Dye produced, but his coverage did not fully convince. Marlo Wax and Delshon Phillips played small percentages of the defensive snaps, so nobody gets to pretend everything is solved just because the defense was strong in several moments. This is the part fans understand without needing a spreadsheet. Perryman may not be the athlete he was at his absolute peak, flying to every inch of the field, but he still knows how to fit the run. He still knows how to hit. He still knows how to align his body, his shoulder, and his read. According to Pro Football Focus, he finished 36th among 88 qualified linebackers as a run defender, and the Chargers finished top 10 in total rushing yards allowed. He had his fingerprints on that. Bringing him back for 1 year and $2.3 million was not sentimental. It was a message. The team looked at the linebacker room and decided it needed a competitive adult in there. Somebody who does more than play snaps. Somebody who pushes Coulson, Wax, Phillips, and everybody else to understand the standard. OTAs are not a casual walkthrough for Perryman. They are territory. That is where he has to plant the flag, command the voice, test the young guys, and make it clear that a spot in this defense is not handed out on hope. If he gives them solid production, great. But if he stabilizes the room, speeds up everyone else's maturity, and keeps the middle from becoming a hidden weakness, that re-signing starts paying off before the first official hit of the season. I come away from these 4 stories with one very clear feeling. The Chargers are not building a roster just to look good in June. I see a team trying to fix protection, find hidden value, watch for an aggressive market opportunity, and keep the defense steady enough to protect its identity. None of that guarantees an automatic explosion, but it all points to a franchise that knows where it got hurt and is working directly on those wounds. And I am going to stay on top of it every single day, because this season could change the conversation in Los Angeles. Comment where you think the Chargers' biggest jump is coming from, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and bolt up!